Hello, so today we're going to do Unit 3, Day 5 notes, which is just basically reviewing everything we've learned up to this point. So let's start off with problem number 1, which is an equation for the line shown on the graph below. So basically they want us to create an equation that represents this graph. So remember, anytime you write an equation, you always need two things on a linear equation: the slope, which is the m, and the y-intercept, which is the letter b. So let's start with the m, which is the slope. Okay. Remember, you got to pick 2 points that you can use on this graph, and I'll use these two right there. So the rise is 1, 2, and the run is 1, 2, 3. So it's 2/3, because remember, it's rise over the rise over the run, and it's negative because it's going downstairs. Okay, so it's a negative 2/3. Now, as for the y-intercept, is where the line touches the y-axis, so it's 1. So remember, when you write your equation, you got to do y equals mx plus b. So instead of the m, we do negative 2/3, and instead of the b, we do 1. So y equals negative 2/3 x plus 1. And if you compare it to your answers, it will be C. Now, let's move on to problem number 2. A town's buildings were graphed on a grid. Which equation will represent a line drawn to connect the town hall and post office? So they're asking us what's the linear equation between the post office and the town hall. So let's start off by identifying the slope, okay? Now the slope, remember, is the rise over the run. So choose 2 points that work. So I'm just going to use the 2 points, the post office and the town hall. So that will be a rise of 1 and a run of 8. So basically it's a rise of 1 and a run of 8, and it's going downstairs, so it's negative. So which of these answers has a slope that is negative 1/8? And clearly it's answer choice B, because answer choice A has negative 2/3, so that's not it. 3/5, that's not it. 1/8, I need it to be negative, so that's not it. So that's why the answer is B. So we really didn't even have to find the y-intercept, and as you notice, the y-intercept is a weird decimal. It makes it a little bit more difficult. So by you doing the slope, it allows us to eliminate the rest of the answer choices and pick the correct answer. Okay, moving on to the next problem. Okay, number 3. Which shows the graph of the equation y equals negative 2x plus 3. Well, they're saying if we were to graph this equation, which graph will be correct? Well, let's identify the different parts of the graph. So let's identify the slope and the y-intercept of that equation. Okay, so the y-intercept is the plus 3. The slope will be negative 2. Okay, so let's start off by identifying the slope. The slope is negative, so that means our line has to be decreasing. A is increasing, so that's out. B is decreasing. C is decreasing. Okay, now let's identify the y-intercept. Which of these has a y-intercept of 3? B has a y-intercept of 3, okay? C has a y-intercept of 6, so it's not C. So by elimination, the answer has to be B. Okay, because B has all the different parts. Now, if I were to find the slope of this line, it should come out to be negative 2. Okay, now let's move on to number 4, which shows the graph of the equation y equals negative x minus 3. Once again, identify the different parts of the equation. Okay, as you can tell, the y-intercept is negative 3. The slope is negative 1, because if there's no number in front of the x, it's a 1. So it's a negative 1, okay? Remember, if there's no x at all, it's 0. If there's an x, but there's no number in front of the x, it's 1. No x at all is 0. If there is an x, but no number, it's 1, okay? So now, let's eliminate a couple things. Let's start with the negative 1. This slope is negative, so that means my line has to be decreasing. This one's decreasing. This one is not. This one is increasing, so this is out. C. This one is increasing as well, so that's L. So by elimination, the answer has to be A. And if you check, your y-intercept is at -3. And if I were to find the slope of this line, it will be -1. So my answer is A. Okay, moving on to the next problem, which is number 5. A local telephone company has hired Trevor to help deliver phone books. He will be paid $5 for the day plus 35 cents for each phone book he delivers. Which equation represents the situation? Well, once again, we're writing an equation, so I need to identify the slope and the y-intercept. Well, the slope will be 35 cents because it has the word each phone book. And remember, your keywords is per, every, each. So because it says each book, that will be 0.35 for the slope. Now the y-intercept is $5 because before he even delivers his first book, he's going to get paid $5 for the day's work automatically. Okay? So if I run my equation, it's going to be y equals 0.35x plus 5. Now if you notice, they use t for the y and the letter b for the x. So if I were to use t and b, it will look like this. So which of these equations matches the one I have? It would be answer choice D, because we have t equals, and then the 0.35 has the letter B, and then we have the $5. So the answer is D. Okay, number 8. What is the slope of the line on the graph below? Okay, so let's find 2 points we can use. Now if I do this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1. So the rise over the run is 6 over 1. And it's increasing. So my answer is 6. So the answer is D. Okay. Moving on. Which is an equation of a line with a slope of 5 and goes through the point 1, 4? So remember, when we're doing these types of problems, first thing I need to do is find the m. So your m is 5. That's what they said. Next thing is find the letter b. So that means I'm going to use the 5, which is the slope, and the ordered pair, which is 1, 4, which are your x and your y. So now, y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to plug in a 4 for the y equals the 5 times 1 plus b. Now 5 times 1 is 5. Bring down your plus b equals 4. Then I'm solving for b, so I need to jailbreak the 5 over to the other side, so that becomes a minus 5. So b equals 4 minus 5 is -1. So that means we found our 2 pieces of information. Now we can write our equation. So m equals 5, b equals -1. So now using those 2 pieces of information, I can say y equals 5x minus 1. And your answer is B. Okay. Now, let's move on to number 8. Which is an equation of the line that passes through the point 2, 3 and has a slope of 1/3? Okay. Once again, let's start off by finding the letter m, which is the slope, and the slope is 1/3. Now the next thing I need to do is find the letter b. I know that the slope is 1/3, and I also know that I have the point 2, 3, which is my x and my y. So using my y equals mx plus b, I'm going to plug in those 3 numbers. So y is 3 equals your m, which is 1/3, times your x, which is 2, plus b. Now, if you get, when you multiply 1/3 times 2, you get a weird decimal, like 0.6666. Go ahead and just change it into a fraction, because it'll be easier, because we have a nasty decimal. We don't want to deal with those decimals. So 1/3 times 2, after you change it into a fraction, is 2/3. Then bring down your plus b equals 3. Next thing I need to do is jailbreak. So the opposite of a positive 2/3 is a minus 2/3. So 3 minus 2/3 gives me 7/3. Okay? So of course, now that I have my m, now that I have my letter b, I can write the equation. So we know that the m is 1/3. We know that the letter b is 7/3. So my equation is y equals 1/3 x plus 7/3. And as you can tell, my answer is D. Now, of course, if you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to ask me the next day in class.